Ridiculously Happy Peoplecast. I'm Sophia Lemon, and today I am talking to Julia Walsh from J. Walsh Social. How are you, Julia?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
What
And I
did you
love the
think?
Mr. T.
I was going to say, what did you think about me dropping the Mr. T reference?
It was amazing. For people who have not read the chapter I wrote in a book, they will have absolutely no idea why you're calling me that, but it warms my heart.
And we are so going to talk about the book. That's going to be a big part of what we're talking about today. But first, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you do and how you came to be where you are?
I would love to. Hello, my name is Julia Walsh, as the lovely Sophia introduced me. I live in Barrie and I run a digital marketing agency. We do social media management for small to mid-sized businesses all over Canada right now. And I love what I do. I've had a varied career path journey over the years, and I've been in this online space for about the past 5.5 years now, I would say. And even in that time, it's pivoted exponentially, but I'm on a trajectory that I'm very happy with at the moment.
Oh. Hence why we are chatting. This is excellent. I love it. Okay. And you co-authored a best-selling book called
One decision away.
Yes, excellent. Where in each chapter, each of the co-authors wrote about their one decision that completely changed their lives. So do we want to start from there, from why Mr. T is a part of this podcast?
I think that's a fitting place to start so people are less confused.
Yes.
This time last year, I was approached to write a chapter in a book with a bunch of other local entrepreneurial ladies. So there's 12 of us that each wrote a chapter. And the Mr. T reference was talking about sort of how I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up, when I was very little. It is in my baby book to this day that I told my mom I wanted to be Mr. T when I grew up, when I was, I think, 3 years old. I thought he was pretty awesome. And the chapter itself just kind of talks about my career journey and decisions, those easy ones that feel hard and the hard ones that feel easy, to kind of get you to where you are. Clearly, I am not in the A team, unfortunately, but I'm still happy with where I ended up.
Full disclosure, I read your chapter again this morning and I started writing down a whole bunch of notes because I just thought it was so cute and entertaining and like full circle, because you finished off basically by saying a Mr. T reference. You turned into Mr. T somehow.
Yes, that's true. I pity the fool who doesn't know how awesome they are.
Which I absolutely love. It's so funny because I have this theory that like kids know how to do things. They just know how to be themselves. And we kind of forget how to do that when we go through life. And I just love that, like, as a child, you wanted to be Mr. T, and your full circle moment is, I pity the fool, whoever doesn't be themselves, which I really like. Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, it's a great quote. Good mantra for life.
It is. It is. Inner child stuff, which is great. I also read that you didn't think that you could make a living reading fiction, doing crafts, and drinking wine.
Yes, that was, when I worked with a career coach after a while because I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, even as I was a grown up with 2 kids. And then she was like, just think about your passions and the things you really love, and well, let's like figure out from there. And that was, when I was writing the chapter, she and I went back and forth on a few things. I was chatting with her about it, and she's like, well, remember that you were mad that you couldn't figure out how to make money, like scrapbooking and drinking wine and reading books. I was like, exactly. So that had to make it in there.
I love that. It was absolutely fantastic. And then you started talking about how exhausting it was, like when you had kids and you were commuting from Barrie to Toronto. Am I understanding this correctly?
I worked at York University for a few years, and it wasn't so bad when I was just had my husband and dog that I worried about. But then, neither one of my children slept as youngsters, so I was often sleep deprived and sometimes would get to work and realize I'd forgotten to brush my teeth in the chaos of the morning. And I was like, cool, now I have to go talk to a bunch of adults where my hair would still be like in a crazy mom bun. Like the one girl in my carpool still laughs because I was kind of losing it towards the end of my tenure there. And I showed up at carpool one morning with my hair in like a crazy messy bun, and I had a tiara on my head because I had been playing with my daughter before I left. And I had like literally gotten into the car and she was like, cool accessory today. I'm like, oh my God.
That is a fantastic story. I'm really sad that didn't make it into the.
Maybe my next chapter.
But like during that time in your life, what were you feeling like? Because I see this with a lot of people who like, they start having kids, they have so many responsibilities, they have to work all this fun stuff. And then all of a sudden they put themselves like last priority on their list and everything starts to feel like shit. So let's talk about that feeling that
Yeah.
you were in where you're just sort of trying to figure everything out and it's just not feeling right.
I felt like I was going crazy. I was like angry all the time. I would cry at the drop of a hat. I had what I've now realized is called decision fatigue, where it's like there would just be like my husband would be like, "Oh, like I'm making breakfast. Do you want a waffle or bagel?" And I literally couldn't decide because it was just one more decision that I had to make, and I felt like I was going insane. And there was like one morning where my youngest daughter would have been like 1.5. I had to be at my carpool at 6:30. So I had to leave my house at 6:20. And she was like hugging me. She was having a rough morning, didn't want to get off. She was like attached to my leg. And I'm like pretty much prying her off me and like, gotta go. So she's bawling. My older daughter's like crying at the door. I'm running to my car. I'm crying. I cried the whole way to work. I was like, this is insane. Like, is this the next however many years of my life? Like, I don't understand how I'm going to be able to survive the rest of my life if this is just what it is. Like, I'd get home and realize I'd forgotten to turn the crock pot on in the morning. So there was like melty chicken sitting in a crock pot instead of the dinner I had planned. Like just everything
Yeah.
was going wrong and it was just snowballing and it was awful.
Yeah. And how long was it from that state to, and where does the career coaching fit into that? And then you making the decision, F all of this, I'm going to do something else.
So my work was incredibly supportive because I was in a union at York. I was able to, and I had some sick days accrued from, quite a few sick days accrued from my mat leave. I took a mental health leave from work. I just had I think I took like a month off. And during that time, I was like, okay, I can't do this. I didn't want to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. That was not my jam either. And also financially, that wasn't going to work for our family. But the thought of having to go back to work, like I had the Sunday scaries every single night. Like there was just no moment in time where I felt okay. And I was like, I can't do this. So my husband and I had a big chat and he was like, okay, well, if you need to figure something out, what can we do? And one of my childhood besties at the time had started her own career coaching business. And then I think that's in the book too. I was like, what kind of idiot needs therapy for their job? Well, this guy. So she was like, let's chat even and just sort of see. So she and I worked together for a little bit to try and figure out what would work. This was pre-COVID, so the work from home options were relatively limited. So we looked at, me starting my own business, and I loved Instagram. I loved the connection of that, sharing, my bits and pieces of my life with my kids and my family. So I decided to sort of jump in full force and start doing social media management and strategy as a business. So that's how that kind of evolved there.
Was there a bunch of stuff that you had to learn right off the bat? Like, how was it starting your business?
It was nuts. I read a bunch of books. I did some courses online. The thing is, and I'm sure a lot of people still find this stuff now. There's all these people, online that are like, this is how I made 80 grand a month on, just buy my course. That is just absolute nonsense filled with nothing. So fortunately, I didn't fall for any of the buy this crazy expensive thing, but I was doing a bunch of courses and going to webinars and checking things out. And it's a lot of people telling you can do these things, but without really giving you actionable ways to do things. So the learning curve was pretty steep, I guess. And there was a lot of trial and error, but even like the industry itself has changed so much since I've been doing it. Once upon a time, you weren't posting videos on Instagram. It was literally like you could reach tons of people just posting a really great photo with a witty caption kind of thing. And now it's so different. So it's been nice that I've kind of been able to learn as I go with a lot of this. And then it's just been like experience. And now I know the things that work and don't work, but it was tricky starting out, but I just loved it. I loved getting to chat. I'm very chatty. I love connecting with people. I really enjoyed learning from people's new businesses and trying to find the best ways to help them show up online.
You said you loved it, but what was the change like for your family? Like all of a sudden you weren't commuting and then you're working from home. Was it like enjoyable for you, or were there any parts where like kids are driving me nuts and I'm trying to do work?
Oh, I full on I can't count how many meetings I had with people where like my kids were I got them snacks, they had a show or an iPad, like they were good. They needed nothing. And then they would start fighting or one of them would be on me and I'm trying to be all professional and cool where I've got someone like picking their nose on my lap and the dog's puking, and just like it was a different kind of chaos, but I really loved that like the kids could go to bed and I could work in the evening if I needed to get stuff done. My youngest was sick a lot, like fortunately nothing serious, but like every other week she was home from daycare. So there was all kinds of fun there. Now that they've been older, like I would really caution someone wanting to start working from home if you have two kids at home, like maybe that would work for you, but that was also just another kind of chaos for me. But I loved that I was home and able to be a little more flexible because it was rough.
Yellow, ridiculously happy people. I'm interrupting this regularly scheduled content to ask you for a little favor. If this pod has made you laugh, inspired you, or made you think, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a moment of our shenanigans. And don't be shy. Share the love by leaving a rating and a review. It's like a virtual high five that helps introduce the show to more ridiculously happy people and helps keep me on track with content that you actually want to hear. So grab your device, unless you're driving, tap that subscribe button, give us a 5-star rating, and write a little review about what you think about this episode. Your support means the world to me. And we're back in 3, 2, 1. And we've talked on and off about this stuff, but you seem to be really into like saying yes to the things that scare you.
That has been newer, but yes, I
Okay.
decided to make a commitment to myself to do that over the past year. So I guess like a little bit of background is, my mom took me aside recently, or well, like probably a year and a half ago, and was like, listen, like you're doing a great job with your business. I'm super proud of you, but you are like a mom with a side job. And she's like, if you want this to take off and you want this to be what you want it to be, I think you need to make more of a commitment to the job itself. And like, your kids are fine. You can be less in mom mode and more in work mode during the day. So that was a big kind of perspective shift for me last year. And then along with that, I had decided like the big things I was going to do is say yes to those things that scared me and try and, network and get out and involved in the community a little bit more. So those were two of my big goals for last year. So public speaking, like being on a podcast or something like that, would have absolutely terrified me a year ago. I think some of it's like self-talk too. I was like, well, I don't really have anything interesting to share. No one really cares about what I had to say. Or I'd be so nervous, like presenting or having, doing a talk. And then I've just been saying yes to so many more things. So I joined a BNI group last year, early in the summer. And it was terrifying to me that every week I would have to get up and speak about my business or my offers for 60 seconds, which felt so much. But now with that practice, the things that scare you get easier as you do them. So that was, that's been a big part of it. So I do not say yes immediately, but I do try and think like, if this makes me a little uncomfortable, but also excited, like maybe I should try it. And that's been really fun.
I think there's definitely something to waiting a second before you like make a decision. I think that might be something that humans have that is like, something we can do. I'm going to think about whether I'm going to do this thing first before I do it.
Yeah. And I've also been the person, like I always want to make people happy and help and things like that. So I would often just say yes to things that ended up sort of making me busier. It doesn't need to, like, I don't need to just say yes to things that make me money or, advance my career, but I was saying yes so much that I was spread very thin. So now I'm trying to say yes to the things I really want to do after making sure I do really want to do them, and kind of thinking a little bit more about overcommitting myself to things that don't really serve me or make me happy.
I kind of want to dig into that. Because you mentioned how you've been saying yes to stuff over the last year or so, and kudos to your mom for giving you that talking to. But still parenting after all of these years.
Oh God, it's a thing.
It's awesome. But you mentioned that you've started saying yes to things recently, but you were saying yes to things before. It sounds like you weren't really afraid. Like in your chapter, you're heading all over the place. Like you're going to the States, you're living there for a few years, you're living in Toronto, you're moving all over the place, taking all sorts of courses and everything. You're saying yes to stuff. And then I did notice that you said you were saying yes to other people's stuff, and maybe you weren't saying yes to the things that were exciting for you. Are you finding that might be the difference? Now you're like prioritizing what you want to do over what other people think you should be doing?
Yes, I think that's a big part of it too, which is good. Like as a mom, for sure, I was kind of at the bottom of the pile for a very long time. And I had gained a bunch of weight when I quit nursing my youngest. Like And then I just was not making time to exercise. I was eating like a random chicken nugget leftover, just whatever. But now, because I was just not making the time for myself. So now my kids' needs are still getting met for sure, but I'm just no longer not meeting my own needs. And I like that I'm now showing the kids that, no, mommy's going to a workout class, or mommy's going out for a walk, or I'm doing the things that I need to do, because I just don't want to be a doormat until they're 18 and move out and then try and get my life back.
To be honest with you, like when I see this with parents, when they're like, I just want my kid's life to be like so perfect and I'm going to take care of everything and I'm going to do all of the stuff for them. And unfortunately, when kids are watching you do that, they're learning to worry about everyone else and not prioritize themselves. Whereas now you're showing them, take care of yourself, take care of your health, and that'll help your mental health and so on and so forth. And I just find that, in 2024, we get so wrapped up in taking care of everyone else that we don't take care of ourselves, and that teaches kids the wrong message.
I totally agree. And I also feel like through adversity, you learn an awful lot. Like, I mean, my kids they are fine. But, sometimes like, no, we're not going to go to Toys R Us for absolutely no reason right now. And, we can go grocery shopping and you don't need to get a chocolate bar. Like, not that those are like huge things, but it's just like they need to understand that everything doesn't always work out the way they want. And that's unfortunate, but you have to learn how to adapt and figure that out. And I think if their lives are just handed to them on a silver platter, they're not going to reach adulthood and have any idea how to actually function.
Definitely. Just out of curiosity, what do you think? Yeah, if you just said yes to your kids over and over again, they're going to probably turn out to have temper tantrums pretty frequently, I would assume, as an adult.
You're just used to always getting your own way. Yeah, and we've all met those adults who you can tell got whatever they wanted when they were younger. But it's, sure. I mean, I have 2 kids, so they have had to learn how to share and all that stuff as well, which I think is also good. But yeah, I just want them to grow up and be good people and not think that the world revolves around them. It can sometimes, Absolutely. But it doesn't always have to. And everyone, like the world isn't your mom. So everyone doesn't, everyone also wants what they want. So you've got to learn how to sometimes just take it and, readjust what your expectations are.
And if you're always accepting everything that's handed to you and never figuring out what it is that you want to do and then setting a goal and working away at that goal, then for your entire life, you're probably going to think that thing over there, it's not for me because it's not coming to me. Whereas there's a big part about pursuing it, and that's when you're going to get to it or it's going to come to you or whatever. And I think maybe a lot of parents and all this like taking care of the kids thing forget to show them that if there's something that you want in life, you have to go out and work on it, which you are doing, which is pretty cool.
And it brings a new sense of satisfaction for sure when it's something you've built or you've done. Like I've taken a great sense of satisfaction in watching my business grow and realize like, or hearing people say good things about me or my work. Like that's just so satisfying because that's something that I've done and I've put out there. And that means more than just like, I won a bunch of money and this is just mine because it came to me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, now you're not working for the money, right? You're working because you're passionate about it. You enjoy it. You have something you get to spend your time doing that you like doing and you're getting paid for it. Like, that's how it should work.
That part's huge. Yeah, I agree.
All right. Have you found that like this part of the world, has that any influence on your business? Obviously, you joined a BNI chapter, which is excellent. Networking, woohoo! But has running your business out of Barrie had any impact on how you run your business in comparison to other places in the world that you've been?
It's just so different. So like my career in Philadelphia and in Toronto as well, I was working for someone else. So those connections in other industries and stuff didn't really seem to matter as much. But I have loved being part of the Barrie business community. I've met some amazing people and it's just been really nice to learn from others. And while I'm, home alone working by myself, I still have like a community of people that I feel like I can be like, hey, does this sound good? There's this cool event coming. I think would be great for you. Like one of my superpowers is like seeing something online and being like, hey, you should do this, but with your spin on it. This would be so great for your business. And I'm not expecting someone to pay me but it's just been a nice way to go back and forth. And I have other friends in the community as well who'll be like, hey, have you seen this event? I think that would be so good for you to come check out. So it's really nice growing and feeling kind of less alone in business. I'm sure in Toronto and whatever, there's different pockets that are the same, but Barrie is a big and growing community, Simcoe County as a whole, I would say. But I run into a lot of the same people at different events and things like that. So it's really nice kind of feeling a little more involved in the community itself.
And actually like building relationships with people. I would imagine that working in Toronto, you could, have the people that you see every day that you know you're going to see every day, but now you're in a community where you're going out in the middle of the day and you're going to see the same people over and over again, which is like a weird thing that we don't think about, but it really has an impact on how like you walk through life.
Oh, for sure. I totally agree. And it's nice, going into like, the kids will be like, how do you know that guy? And I'm like, oh, well, he's a local painter and blah, blah, blah. But just, like those funny connections, like again, from BNI, I'm going with a totally different client to the Toronto Home Show tomorrow. And in my BNI group chat, one of the members was like, hey, I scored 2 free tickets to the home show. Does anyone want them? So I like picked those up today and messaged my client and was like, hey, I got us free entry for tomorrow. And I mean, it's a $20 ticket. It's not like T-Swift VIP passes. However, it's still kind of cool to be like, I knew someone that had this and it's something I needed. And then, same goes for me. If I have stuff to offer, I'm happy to try and find those people that I can help with it.
That's awesome. And also it's okay for you to get T-Swift level excited about going to the home show if that is what does it for you.
I mean, I would rather T-Swift. However, I will happily take free entry to the home show.
Because say Taylor Swift, if you want to go to the home show with Julia, she would like to go with you.
Yes, just hit me up on Insta and I'll totally bring you.
If you're listening to this.
I mean, I'm sure she is, and I'm sure the Toronto Home Show is hard on her radar while she's in the middle of a tour, but why not?
That might be true. She might be a little bit preoccupied with everything else going on in her life, but still.
You never know.
We can
Stranger things have happened.
How are you finding that all this relationship building is impacting your business? Because and not just the people that are hiring you, but how you actually communicate on social media, because you're communicating on behalf of other people. So obviously you have to get to know them really well.
Yes.
And so how is all of this networking and how is all of the networking influencing how you're doing your job? Is it changing things for you?
I would say yes, to some extent for sure, because I'm meeting people in different industries that, I'm like quite friendly with a real estate agent now. So I also have real estate agent clients. So when she and I are chatting about stuff, I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. So it's knowledge for different industries and things like that. And then as I'm learning more about how other people market their business, things that have worked for them, things that haven't worked for them, it's just little kind of nuggets I tuck away for things moving forward, which has been great. And then some of the events I've gone to have had great and really amazing speakers. So, they're sharing their knowledge, and that's all kinds of stuff that can often be applied in other ways. And just getting exposed to, someone talking about like a podcast they listen to or a book they've read that I'm like, oh, okay, that's something, for me to bookmark to check out. So that's been really neat. It's that degrees of separation where you're, learning from others, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah. I love learning from others, but I will tell people that usually when someone tells me something that's interesting to me, at first I'll be like, okay. And then like a couple days later, I'll be like, that was a good idea. Like all of a sudden it'll dawn on me. I don't know about you, but I'm like a reluctant learner.
It's got to percolate a little bit. And sometimes you don't understand how something could impact you or your business until another situation arises and you're like, oh, funny, I just learned about this.
Do you have any stories about this with regard to your business by chance?
Probably, but nothing that I'm able to recall immediately. I did learn an interesting fact in a business mentorship I'm in recently about the reticular activating system. Okay. So you know how you're like planning a trip to New Zealand and then all of a sudden all you see are like commercials for New Zealand, books about New Zealand, someone talking about something to do with that. And it's the way our brain is wired. Like you're fed an insane amount of information every day and your brain filters through the things that are important. So those things that, for survival, once upon a time, it was like, signs of predators or where you could find food, things like that, which fortunately nowadays is not so much. But when you're kind of training your brain to focus on the things that are important to you, you start picking up on more of that information. So I think I've been trying to really just like hone in on the things that are important to me, the things I want to learn, the things of how I want to grow. And then I'm finding the more that I'm sort of trying to put those things out there, the more I'm noticing information that I feel like can help me. So that's been really cool.
Yes. I love
and
that.
It's an actual thing. Yeah.
Yes. Very difficult to pronounce. Reticular activating system.
So you can always also call it your RAS.
Oh, okay. That's cute.
Things
Your
I've
ass.
learned.
I like that.
But
I
it's,
like that.
people talk about, manifesting stuff, and I've
Mhm.
joined information sessions and things like that. But it's like, you can't just manifest that you're going to get $1 million this year and sit there and try and woo woo it. But if you're like, I want to make $1 million this year by signing this many clients, by looking for people in a service-based industry, and it's all those different, like, if you're really kind of hammering it down, all kinds of those little things that are going to help you get to that big goal, those are the pieces that your brain's going to pick up on. So it's, you can't just determine something fantastic, like I'm going to become really well known this year, but like, how are you going to do that? I'm going to try and show up on podcasts, I'm going to do whatever. And then those opportunities, they don't just necessarily appear, but you'll hear someone else talking about something and then realize like, oh, that would be a person for me to reach out to, things like that.
I'm doing a lot of that lately. All of the manifesting stuff where you have to
I love
actually go in
that.
and do the work part of it as well.
Which
You
is the
don't
part
just,
that I think people miss
yeah,
out on. Like, it's kind of
absolutely.
an important step.
For sure. And I want to get more into the brain stuff because I'm all fascinated by this brain stuff. And I know that you had an experience where you took your daughter to the doctor and it taught you a lot about yourself. So do you want to tell us
Oh,
about that?
yes. So my kids are my special snowflakes for sure. And one of them, we were just having some issues with school and things were getting pointed out. So we went and had taken her to get assessed for ADHD. And all the stuff I didn't know about until I was reading about it as well. But it's often very missed in girls because they're good at masking. And there's a humongous rate of women my age, which is 43, who are getting diagnosed later in life because women are also quite able to just plow through stuff. But then it's like, as things pile on, like for me, it was the kids and my job and life and keeping a house and blah, blah, blah. I was like forwarding memes to my friends and my husband and being like, haha, this is so me. And then being like, oh my God, maybe this is so me. And so after my daughter was assessed, I went and was assessed, and turns out I have ADHD as well, which learning more and more into it has been amazing because I realized why my brain works the way it does or why I do things the way I do. And I used to find that so frustrating, and I would be comparing myself to other people. And that has given me a huge amount of grace to realize like, okay, my brain just works differently. And then kind of figuring out the best ways to, have a good workflow, how to be better as a mom or a homeowner or things like that, because I can't just do things the way other people do. And that's fine.
Yeah. So what were you trying to make your brain do before that you have now learned doesn't work?
Well, I am very squirrely, and if something doesn't interest me, I will put it off to the last minute. Also, sometimes things are so simple, but I don't automatically know how to do it. And then I kind of just stress out about it and leave it till forever. But it's like sometimes I will just ask for help. And, I was working with a naturopath in the fall, things kind of just sort of fell off. And then the other day I sent her an email and was like, hey, I don't even know where we're at anymore. I'm so sorry. Like, I can't go back through our emails. I can't even remember the last thing we talked about. Can you just let me know what I need to do to get this back on track? And she sent the loveliest email back being like, dude, don't worry. That's totally me as well. Okay, this is where we're at. This is what you need to do. Whereas before, I probably would have just left it fall off and been like, I guess that's just not happening. So that's been a thing. And it's just like, I wanted to be such a great mom. I wanted to be such a good business owner. I wanted to be so organized, but like, I just am not that person. I can't remember things. Often I'll be like, hey, no, I'm going to text you this right now because if I don't, I'll forget. So I've got like extensive to-do lists. I've got calendars. I've just, all the different ways that I can make things work for me. I'm very visual. So if I don't have it written down, there's a good chance it's gone forever from my brain.
I started. Sorry. Yes. So does my brain. You said that. I was like, oh, yeah, if I don't write it down, I forgot. I forget whatever it was for sure. Excellent. Yeah. You're talking and I'm going, this sounds like me. Perhaps I should go and talk to
It's
my
been a
doctor.
huge game changer. So I am taking medication, which helps with some of the actual just like mental focus, but that you need strategies to keep in place to help with all of the other things too. Like I can focus really well, but it's like, well, shoot, what am I focusing on? So I've had to kind of build up a system that's worked for me to help supplement that as well. And it's not just like some sort of chemical imbalance that'll be fixed with medication. Like you need a little more work than just that. And it's, I have friends that are just like super great moms and they're so organized and they never forget that it's flipping pajama day and that your kid is like, I can't tell you how many times I've sent my kids to school and then they've come home and been like, we had pizza today. And I'm like, crap. So it's just like I've got alerts on my phone every morning at 7. It reminds me it's one
Yeah.
of them has pizza day or whatever. So I'm not making extra lunches. And it's just like I wanted to be the person that would just remember, and I'm not. And I need to be okay with that and give myself grace that I'm still a great mom. I'm good at all kinds of other things, but sometimes I just need a little extra help getting organized.
Maybe, but do you find that now you can be a bit more creative? Like, do the creative juices just flow a little bit more easily? Like, do you let your brain just go with it and see what happens?
Yes, which is
Yeah.
really nice too, because I just didn't like it. I'm a big daydreamer. But I always felt like I would have to be calling myself back down to earth kind of thing. And now I'm like, no, okay, I can just see how this plays out. And oftentimes it's really nice. And it's just good having, I don't want to say an excuse, but like being able to give myself a reason for why I'm like that. And I've just said to the kids, people's brains work differently, and that's beautiful because it would be so boring if we were all the same. But you need to give grace to your friends if their brains work differently than yours, and give grace to yourself. And sometimes I'll just say, oh, sorry, mommy's doing her best. And it's just I feel like I have sort of able to give myself grace in that breathing room to be like, this is just how my brain works, and I'm gonna ride it for all the good things and try and help fill in the pieces where it needs a little work.
You ever find yourself still judging yourself?
Oh, all the time. I think that's very just human nature-y. But I do try and step back and like, okay, it's actually fine. And I was nervous to share it. It's not a huge part of my branding or anything like that, but I have
Yeah.
a few times shared memes or like shared some stories, and the amount of people that have been like, hey, I'm in the middle of getting diagnosed too, or hey, this was me. I just been nervous to share about it. Like it's not an embarrassing, awkward problem to have. It's just, I think it's very common. We live in a very fast paced, crazy, all over the map kind of world these days. So I think it's a lot of people struggle with the constant influx of information and how we're supposed to be available constantly and all that stuff. Like it's difficult for a lot of people. It's hard to shut your brain off.
You put a sentence in the book that I was just like, oh my goodness. Okay, so you were talking about commuting with your job, and you were saying I was exhausted from commuting and seeing my children for just a couple of hours a day for a job I didn't really love. Yeah. How are you feeling now?
I love it. I mean, some days I could ship my kids off to go work somewhere else, but most of the time it's just so much better. And even when I'm tired or frustrated, I love what I'm doing. And that's made a huge difference. Like I really enjoyed my job at York. It was fine. I liked the people I worked with, but I just sort of had that like, is this what the rest of my life is? Like I'm leaving this early in the morning, I'm coming home this late at night. I'm just like I'm tired constantly. Like, is this just what I want? And now when I'm tired or frustrated or whatever, it's still I'm doing this for me. It's something I love that I'm doing, and that's definitely made it so much easier because it's like a sacrifice for something you want.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously you're going to go through times when everything's like super busy and difficult. You had another sentence in the book. Then you run out of milk, your kid barfs on you, you realize you forgot to email that client back, and you just want to cry. And this one stuck out to me because it's not my kid who would be barfing, it'd be my cat who loves to violently and loudly barf right in front of you. But yeah, I know that stuff. And like going into business by yourself, there's a lot of like stress to it, but also fulfilling in that. And I'm sure with ADHD, you might feel this. You get to be creative where you might be working for someone else. The job might be great benefits. All of your coworkers are fantastic and you love being around them. But if the job is not fulfilling you, there's no chance in heck you're going to be in that building for 40 hours a week feeling great about it. It's a lot of your time
No.
that you would rather do something else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I struggled paying like I think my ADHD got really bad at work because I would know what I
Mhm.
needed to do, and I would just be sitting at my computer like, okay,
I've done
just
that.
do it. And that
I've
was
done that.
awful. But so
Yep.
part of my like that sentence was from, there's like this elusive work-life balance that I think people think you can have, and it's really hard. Like I just felt I was half-assing my job and half-assing being a mom, and I want to full-ass everything. So, it's just some days are great, and I feel like I honestly am on top of the world and I love everything, and other days I just want to build a pillow fort and cry. But
Yeah.
it's like finding how you can make it more like harmonious, I guess, versus the balance, because the pendulum does always swing one way or the other. And I think however, like if you're an entrepreneur, if you work for someone else, whatever, that's just life. But if you can figure out that balance to the extent, or the harmony, I should say, where it's like not so heavily weighted one way or the other regularly, then I think you're winning.
I agree. I agree. I was just gonna say, I sense that your inner child is very strong. All of your imagery is like so entertaining, like building a pillow fort and just go in it and pretend no one can know that you're in there.
Exactly. No one can find me in here. I'm very secretly still a young person at heart. I honestly forget that I'm in my 40s sometimes. I'm like, oh, right. Like, why are these people calling me mom? How am I supposed to know how to solve anything? I still need my mom.
Yeah, I love that. It's very true.
Hi, I'm Becky Waples, the host of the Small Towns Big Dreams podcast. The podcast that celebrates small town creators and shares their stories. From their background to where they found their courage, from their challenges to their wins, from where they found their inspiration to how they took their first step. Join us each week to hear how each guest turned their big dreams into reality. If you are a creator, an entrepreneur, or love someone who is, subscribe now to the Small Towns Big Dreams podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and let's grow together.
I'm Lauren Best, and in my podcast, I have conversations with compelling creatives and answer your questions. I dive into what I've learned as a voice coach and performance poet, and share why over 15 years of music leadership has shaped my collaborative approach. I reveal how I've reawakened my own creativity. Subscribe to my new show, Lauren's Best, wherever you get your podcasts. Join me on Substack for exclusive bonus content, laurenbest.substack.com.
Hey, listen up. Tamara here from the Clean It Club podcast interrupting. Sorry, not sorry. I just wanted to let you know that if you love this podcast, you might just love the Clean It Club as well. We are all about deep cleaning our lives from the inside out, digging those skeletons out of our closets and letting go of what no longer serves us. So roll up your sleeves, dust off those life lessons, and join me and my friends as we learn how to navigate our way to a life with more love, more laughter, and maybe less piles of laundry. Find the Clean It Club podcast on Spotify.
Creativity, obviously, that's going to come in very handy with social media management. Because if you're not being
That
creative,
part has been...
you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah. Well, very true. That part I love. I love coming up with ideas. Like I've really got more into the strategy piece behind it. Like once upon a time, I think I was saying earlier, you would just put a pretty picture up and be like, this is my new purse. Meh. But nowadays it's like, there's so much more behind it. Like as opposed to just posting and asking for the sale, or as opposed to just kind of posting all over about all kinds of different things. There's like really a strategy behind what you want to be talking about and how you want to talk about it. So that part has been great. I've actually recently partnered with some local photographers. I know you're going to be helping out with some people that I have out your way. I've got a friend in Barrie who helps with that stuff because, I can write you something great, but if you're taking me a sideways, really crappy picture that I'm posting, we're not really syncing your brand together. So it's really kind of about a lot of different pieces. So I'm also, I guess, learning where my skills aren't as great and trying to get help in that. And always learning. Like I do love learning new things. So I'm often going to different summits and webinars and things like that to try and learn and keep kind of evolving my skill set. Because as things change, you need to be up with that. So I think that's a really great way that's been keeping my brain excited and busy through all this as well.
That's awesome. Do you have any recommendations for people who are wanting to up their social media game in a time when social media engagement sucks?
It's so hard, and everyone keeps, you talk about the algorithm and things like that, but the main things like actionable pieces are being consistent, like showing up, even if you're feeling super overwhelmed and you can't get some Instagram posts out for the week, your business isn't going to crumble, but like show up on stories if you can. Some of the stories I get the most engagement from, I've been doing this like riding in cars with moms kind of jokey thing on my stories where it's like I'm often like sitting in my car waiting to pick up groceries or waiting for the kids at the bus. So I'll like just pop on and sort of talk about what's going on. I'm often sharing what book I'm reading, things like that. So it's just like making sure you're injecting enough of your personality into your account as well so people know who you are. There's so many faceless accounts where, you're running a business and you just don't think people want to know who you are. But people like knowing that, like, oh my gosh, that lady is super into gratitude. She's really funny. She loves Dungeons and Dragons. Not me, but someone might. And if that really resonates with someone in your audience, you're developing those relationships in that way. So it is that engagement piece that if you can work on as much as possible, someone might not be that person that's going to buy from you, but if you're engaged in chatting with them, if someone they know is looking for something like that, they're going to remember, like, oh, there's this really funny photographer out of Owen Sound. I think she'd make you so comfortable because she's really friendly. She's lovely. You should go meet with her. I may not necessarily need your service, but I'm happy recommending you to someone because I've now built that relationship with you. And those are the pieces that I think people often kind of forget about, that it's about your audience, not just about you or your services.
Yeah. And this is something that I've been dealing with a lot lately because, as anyone who has been listening to the show knows, I've been doing a lot of work on myself, blah, blah, blah. I cannot say it enough. Okay, anyway, we'll put that aside. But I have realized that I have not at all been myself with my business. So all the stuff that I've been posting on social media, like talking about ridiculously happy people, all that fun stuff, post some silly photos of kids sticking their tongues out, but I really have not been myself. I've been wording everything like in a professional manner so that people might want to hire me. And I've decided that that's not very useful for me. It's far more effective to actually be yourself and put some of your personality into your business, for one, because it's just more fun that way. And for another, because people will actually come out of the woodwork to want to work with you when they align with your values. You know? So actually putting yourself out there and your sense of humor or your personality or whatever it is actually a good thing. And I have recently also interviewed someone, Vanessa Stubbs. So her episode is out. If you go back and listen to that one, I believe it's episode 24. But she is highly entertaining, tatted up, piercings. And what she does is she puts inappropriate things onto fine china, swear words, the C word, all of that fun stuff. And that's what she does. And it's hilarious. And her social media is the funniest thing ever. And if you're ever afraid of like being yourself because people aren't going to like it, go and look at her Instagram page and you're going to see that everyone's like, oh my God, you're so funny. You know, like, don't be afraid to put yourself out there because that's going to help so much. It's going to just by default make your business life a lot more enjoyable. Have you found that that is the case for yourself?
Yes. And when I'm like not sure about what to share about or what to talk about, I talk about something that's completely not necessarily part of my business. I've swung the other way sometimes where I've been like, I haven't actually talked about what I do in a while, so I should probably do that. But you just, and it can be scary. And some people, you know, maybe you don't want to post something super divisive, like political statements or whatever, but honestly, like pick one little, like maybe you're a huge Harry Potter nerd. You can share little bits about that on your feed and that's not going to really turn anyone off, but it might really make someone be like, oh my God, yes, me too.
Yeah, exactly.
And then,
I mean,
for
sure.
Vanessa's going to have like some people don't swear and there'll be a ton of pearl clutchers who come across her content. Those aren't her audience anyway. And no one is for everyone. And I think that's something really important to remember because you aren't going to be for everyone. You can't please everyone, but you are going to make those better connections when you're sharing even just that little piece about yourself. And if you're nervous, pick literally one thing to start sharing about. This is like my insane coffee routine that I have every morning. Film that, record it, talk about it, share it in your stories. Or just like, here's the coffee that took me 5 minutes to make. And you know, I've saved $400 this year by not going to Starbucks, but you know, I'm not able to buy myself a house now, you know, just those, like, just something little that people can relate to. Cause there's all that like, oh, if you kids stopped buying your expensive coffee, you'd have a down payment. Like, no, you won't. But you know, there's just that little thing that's that piece that's you, share that.
It's so true. You wouldn't have a down payment if you stopped shopping at Starbucks.
Well, haven't you seen those memes where people are giving you financial advice? It's like, I'm pretty sure my $5 a week Starbucks addiction isn't sending me to the poorhouse. But, you know, if you're that person that just doesn't go out for coffee because you've got some sick machine at home and that's, you know, just one little thing you love to share, or there's some book every spring you read because it reminds you of your grandma or like whatever, but just something little that you feel comfortable sharing, like start with that little piece and you'll be surprised how quickly it's easier to share these little things about yourself. And I know some people are very against sharing their kids on social media. That's totally fine. But the fact that you're still a parent or a step parent or whatever, like you can still share those pieces about what your life is like share 14 pairs of shoes at the front door and be like, guess how many of these belong to my kids? And there's like some raging play date going on. You know, there's just those little things that people relate to that, right? And that's what you're trying to create, is that like, oh, that's me, that piece to make you seen.
And I tell people this all the time when we're talking about personal branding photos. If I go to a website and I'm wanting to work with a local business and I do not see a photo of the person who owns the business, I exit that website and go to another one. And I find it's the same thing with social media. And like we're just going to use real estate agents as an example because there's about 70 billion of them in this part of the world. All real estate agents sell real estate. Did you know that?
Shocking.
I know. But if I go to every real estate's Instagram profile and I see that every real estate agent sells real estate and that's all I see, I'm not going to have any more information to go on for which of these real estate agents I want to work with. So their social media profile is completely useless to me if they are not sharing who they are as a person. And bonus content here, like these days you need to be showing what your like political values are a little bit, because people don't want to work with people who they fundamentally don't agree with on some very important issues. So that's why you might want to put out there, you know, your leanings politically. You don't have to be like super blatant about it. You could put it out there in more subtle ways, but people want to know who you are as a human being before they make the decision to work with you. And you're right. It doesn't have to be anything inappropriate or sweary or anything. It could be like teeny weeny little things. Just talk about things that you're interested in, and that will help you connect with people. You know,
some cool advice.
Ooh, yes, go. Cool advice. I want cool advice.
Sorry.
Yes.
Some cool advice about that I once got from a lecture or something like that was, a woman said, like, imagine that you're on an airplane and you sit down next to a stranger. You guys have like a 5-hour flight ahead of you and you just start chatting. Like maybe that comfort level or that amount of sharing that you have with someone, that can be kind of what you put out with your audience. You're not going to share with them like your marriage is falling apart and you're on the brink of bankruptcy, but you can be like, yeah, this is where I live. We're thinking of moving, la, la, la. Like whatever that level of, you're never going to see this person again because you're flying to wherever and they're gone. But like, you know, you're having that nice casual conversation. That's like a kind of maybe a good indicator of what you want to be sharing on social. Because we've all seen those really uncomfortable overshare people, or the ones that do that vague booking where they're like, thoughts and prayers, my life's falling apart, and then nothing else. Like, don't share that stuff because people hate it. But, you know, you can talk about like where you're at, or like, I'm struggling right now. My dad's sick. My kids are busy. Like life's crazy right now. Like so many other people are in certain stages of life as you. So you don't have to dive into the super ugly nitty gritty, but you can just let people know, I'm a really busy mom and my life is crazy, period. The end.
That would actually be a pretty entertaining post. I'm picturing a glass of wine, maybe like a cigarette with one of the long things. And
just a casual mom doing casual mom things.
My life is crazy.
I think I may now have to do that.
I can't wait to see that. All right. What else should we know about you?
Oh man, I don't know. I'm great at talking about myself. There's always when you have those, like, people joke there's like the fight or fright response, fight or flight. Mine is like fight, flight, or funny, because I get panicked sometimes and then just start trying to make people laugh to make me feel more comfortable.
I'm with you on the laughing one. That's a good one. In case you haven't noticed, since I laugh after pretty much every sentence that I say.
And that is why I like you. I enjoy happy people. I enjoy ridiculously happy people, if you will.
Oh, thank you. Me too. Ridiculously happy people are the best. All right. Do you have a ridiculously happy moment for us?
One I was thinking of, my daughter, actually I have it on my desk. I was having a rough, scary day the other day. Well, in the fall, actually, we were getting ready to do my book launch party and I was just so nervous. We had to speak in front of all these people and talk about ourselves and our book. And I came down in the morning the day of, and my daughter had put a sticky note on my laptop and it said, "You are enough. I could not live without you. Love, Zoe." Big red heart. And that just made me feel like $1,000,000. And I smiled all day and I stuck it on my thing above my desk. And I just look at that whenever I'm having a rough go or wondering, you know, what the heck I'm doing all this for. And it's for them. And I love it.
I love that so much. It's so cute. How old is she?
She is 10 and a half, going on 16, I swear.
Yeah. That is so cute. I love that.
What about
That's
you?
really
Do you
good
have a ridiculously happy moment?
Well, people didn't see it, but when we got on the video, I was fanning myself furiously. The studio is like a flippin' sauna sometimes. And I walk in, the windows are wide open and it's east facing. So I had the sun just beating in the studio for hours this morning. And I walked in, I was like, ugh. And thankfully, in like the half an hour that I had before us talking, I sort of stopped producing more sweat. And now it's all almost dried. So
Hooray!
just the back of my knees are still a little bit damp.
A little tacky. But it is quite, I love that it's sunny out today. I'm taking my kids to the park this afternoon so they can whip around and it's nice. I love the joy that comes with like winters. Well, who knows? It's Ontario. We may still get snow. But for today, I will hold on to this sunny, lovely day and feel good about it.
It's fantastic. I love it. Okay, tell us where people can find you. And I also want you to tell us where we can find the book, even though I'm going to put the link in the show notes, but you're going to tell us anyway.
I mean, if you go to Amazon and look up One Decision Away, that is my book. It is white. It has a gold butterfly on the cover. It's lovely. I'm on Instagram at jwalshsocial. My website is currently under construction. So if you head there, you'll see a lovely thing to sign up to my newsletter. But it should be out in the next few weeks. We've been working behind the scenes on that. And that's jwalshsocial.com.
I love that.
Or .co or .ca. All of the things.
New websites are exciting. I'm looking forward to that. As soon as you let me know that it's done, I'm going to go nerd out and wander around it.
Hooray!
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm in a lovely, smiley mood now for the rest of the day.
That's a wrap on this episode. I'm Sophia Lemon. I photograph ridiculously happy people, and you can find me at sophialemon.com, at ridiculouslyhappyppl on Instagram, and on Facebook and Pinterest. Has someone made you smile recently? Or maybe you're feeling proud of an achievement, or perhaps something just absurd or embarrassing has happened and you can't stop laughing about it. Head over to happyp.pl/record and tell us your ridiculous story. You may hear it on the next episode of the Ridiculously Happy People cast. And if you've loved this episode but aren't ready to shout it from the rooftops, subscribing and leaving us a rating and a review will make us ridiculously happy. You can do that right in your podcast app. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay happy, and remember, life's short, but there's always plenty of time to be ridiculously happy.